If you're watching this right now, you need to understand something. Australia just changed the game. And I'm not talking about small tweaks or minor policy adjustments. I'm talking about a complete shift in how skilled migration, state sponsorship, and the entire education sector operates in this country. And if you're planning to move to Australia, if you're already here on a visa, or if you're a student dreaming of permanent residency, what I'm about to tell you could completely change your path. Because the rules have been rewritten, the doors have been moved, and thousands of people are going to miss out simply because they didn't see this coming. Let me be very clear with you. New South Wales just announced major changes to their 491 and 190 visa sponsorship programs. The Department of Home Affairs just issued 10,000 invitations under the 189 visa with some of the most competitive scores we've seen in years. And on top of that, 2 massive pieces of legislation have just been introduced that will change everything about how migration sponsorship works and how international education is regulated in Australia. This isn't just another update, this is a turning point. And you're here at exactly the right time because we're going to break down every single detail, every pathway, every opportunity, and every risk so that you know exactly what to do next. So here's what's happening. Australia's immigration system has always been complex, but right now it's in the middle of one of the most significant transformation periods in recent history. The government is tightening integrity measures, cracking down on exploitation, and reshaping the entire skilled migration framework. And while that might sound like bad news, it's actually creating new opportunities for the right people. People who are prepared, people who understand the system, people who move fast and move smart. But here's the problem. Most people don't know these changes are happening. Most people are still applying under old assumptions, old strategies, old advice. And that's why they're getting rejected. That's why they're missing out. That's why they're watching others succeed while they stay stuck. Let me take you back for a second. Australia has always relied on skilled migration to fill critical gaps in the workforce, whether it's healthcare, engineering, IT, trades, or education. The country needs skilled workers to keep the economy moving, and for decades, the pathway was relatively straightforward. You get your skills assessed, you submit an expression of interest, you get invited, you apply, you get your visa. But over the past few years, things have gotten more complicated. Why? Because demand has skyrocketed, because backlogs have grown, because the government started realizing that not all applications were genuine, not all employers were ethical, and not all education providers were delivering quality, so they started tightening the rules. They started adding more checks. They started prioritizing transparency and integrity. And that's exactly what's happening right now with these new updates. Let's talk about the scale of what we're dealing with here. New South Wales, one of the most popular destinations for skilled migrants in Australia, has now confirmed that Pathway 1 and Pathway 3 under the 491 regional visa will officially open on the 19th of January 2025. That's a hard date. That's a real opportunity. But here's the critical part. Pathway 2 is still on hold. Why? Because they're assessing demand, because they want to make sure they're not overwhelmed, because they're being strategic about who they invite and when. And this tells you something very important. It tells you that the state governments are now taking control of their own nomination processes. They're not just following federal guidelines. They're making decisions based on local workforce needs, regional development goals, and long-term planning. And if you don't understand how each pathway works, if you don't know which one applies to you, you're already behind. Now let's break down what this means in human terms. Imagine you're a skilled worker who moved to regional New South Wales 6 months ago. You've been working in your occupation. You've been contributing to the local economy. You've been following the rules. And now, under Pathway 1, you have a direct route to state nomination for the 491 visa. Even if you're living in a neighboring state, as long as you've been employed in regional New South Wales for at least 6 months, you're eligible. That's massive. That's a real pathway to permanent residency. But here's the catch. Applications will be processed chronologically. First in, first served. And all your supporting documents need to remain valid for at least 5 days after submission. That means if your police check expires, if your health assessment lapses, if your skills assessment runs out, your application could be delayed or rejected. And in a system where timing is everything, that delay could cost you your spot. Or think about this, you're an international student who just completed a bachelor's degree or higher at a university in regional New South Wales. You invested years of your life, tens of thousands of dollars, and countless hours of study. And now, under Pathway 3, you have a direct nomination pathway for the 491 visa. But again, this only applies if you completed your qualification in regional New South Wales. If you studied in Sydney or another metro area, you don't qualify. If you didn't complete at least a bachelor's level course, you don't qualify. The criteria are strict. The documentation requirements are detailed, and if you don't get it right the first time, you could lose your opportunity entirely. And then there's the 189 visa. 10,000 invitations were just issued. 10,000. That sounds like a lot, right? But here's the reality. The competition is brutal. Competitive scores are now sitting between 75 and 85 points. Some trade occupations got invited at 65 points, which is good news if you're in a trade. But if you're in IT or accounting, you didn't get a single invitation in this round. Not one. Why? Because those occupation ceilings have already been met. Because there's too much supply and not enough demand. Because the system is now favoring occupations that are genuinely in shortage, not just popular ones. And if you've been sitting on 70 points thinking that's enough, you need to wake up. Because it's not. Not anymore. You need to boost your points. You need to improve your English. You need to get state nomination. You need to do whatever it takes to stay competitive because the bar is only going up. Now let's talk about the technical side for a moment, because this is where most people get lost. The 491 visa is a regional visa. It's a provisional visa that leads to permanent residency through the 191 visa after 3 years. But to get the 491, you need state or territory nomination, and each state has its own rules, its own pathways, its own occupation lists, and its own processing timelines. New South Wales has 3 pathways. Pathway 1 is for people already working in regional New South Wales. Pathway 3 is for people who studied in regional New South Wales. Pathway 2, which is currently on hold, is for people with specific skills that AUSSIE needs. And here's what you need to understand. Around 25% of AUSSIE's nomination quota has already been used. That means there's still 75% left. But that 75% won't last long. Once those pathways open on January 19th, applications will flood in. And if you're not ready, if your documents aren't prepared, if you don't submit early, you're going to miss out. And this isn't just about NSW. Let's look at the broader state and territory nomination landscape. AUSSIE led the most recent round with 58 nominations for the 190 visa and 329 nominations for the 491 visa. That's significant. That shows they're actively nominating people. That shows there's opportunity, but Queensland, by comparison, issued the fewest nominations across both categories. Does that mean Queensland is closed? No. But it does mean competition there is tighter. It does mean you need to be even more strategic if you're targeting Queensland. Every state is different. Every territory has different needs. And if you're not tailoring your approach to the specific state you're applying to, you're making a massive mistake. But here's where things get even more serious. 2 major pieces of legislation have just been introduced that are going to reshape the entire migration and education landscape. The first is the Migration Amendment Combating Migrant Exploitation Bill 2025, and this is huge. This bill introduces a public register of approved 482 visa sponsors. That means every employer who sponsors a 482 visa holder will now be listed publicly. Why does that matter? Because it creates transparency. Because it holds employers accountable. Because it protects workers from exploitation. For years, there have been stories of migrants being underpaid, overworked, threatened, and abused by unethical employers. And the government is finally taking action. This public register means you can now check if your employer is legitimate before you accept a job offer. It means bad employers can't hide anymore. It means the system is becoming fairer, but it also means employers are going to be more cautious. It means sponsorship will be harder to get. It means you need to prove you're the right candidate, not just any candidate. And then there's the Education Legislation Amendment, which is focused on integrity and sector reforms. This is the Education Integrity Bill 2025, and it brings strict reforms to the AUSSIE Act, which governs international education in Australia. Here's what's changing. Provider registration rules are getting tighter. Education agents will now have to be transparent about their commissions. If a provider is inactive for 12 months, their registration will be automatically cancelled. And here's the big one. Education providers will now be required to deliver courses to domestic students for at least 2 years before they can accept overseas enrollments. Let me repeat that. 2 years. That means new education providers can't just set up shop and start recruiting international students immediately. They have to prove they're legitimate. They have to demonstrate quality. They have to build a track record. And while this is great for integrity, it also means the number of available courses for international students could shrink in the short term. It means students need to be even more careful about which institution they choose. It means fake colleges and dodgy providers are going to be weeded out, but it also means genuine students need to act fast before the options narrow even further. So what do? How do you navigate all of this? Let me walk you through this step by step because this is critical. First, if you're targeting the 491 visa in New South Wales, you need to identify which pathway applies to you right now. If you've been working in regional NSW for 6 months, start gathering your employment evidence immediately. Payslips, employment contracts, reference letters, everything. If you're a graduate from a regional New South Wales institution, get your academic transcripts, your completion letters, your enrollment records, all of it. Make sure every document is certified. Make sure every document is current. Make sure you're ready to submit the moment those pathways open on January 19th. Because if you wait, if you hesitate, someone else will take your spot. Second, if you're in the 189 pool, you need to boost your points right now. I'm not talking about next month, I'm talking about now. Get your English score up. Take the PTE or IELTS again if you need to. Claim partner points if you're eligible. Claim work experience points by getting every single day of your employment documented. Consider state nomination for the 190 visa if your occupation is eligible. Do everything you can to get above 80 points because that's where the invitations are happening. And if you're in IT or accounting and you didn't get invited this round, you need to pivot. Look at state nomination. Look at the 491 visa. Look at alternative occupations, because waiting for the 189 in those occupations is not a winning strategy anymore. Third, if you're an international student or you're planning to become one, you need to choose your education provider very carefully. Don't just pick the cheapest option. Don't just go with the institution your agent recommends. Do your own research. Check if the provider is registered. Check how long they've been operating. Check their domestic student enrollment. Check their reputation. Because under these new reforms, dodgy providers are going to be shut down, and if you're enrolled in one when that happens, your visa could be affected. Your pathway to permanent residency could be affected. Your entire future could be affected, so take this seriously. Make smart choices. Invest in quality education, not just a visa shortcut. And fourth, if you're being sponsored by an employer under the 482 visa, you now have a tool to protect yourself. Check the public register once it's live. Make sure your employer is listed. Make sure they're legitimate. And if you see red flags, if you're being asked to pay fees, if you're being threatened, if your conditions don't match what was promised, report it. Because the government is finally cracking down on migrant exploitation, and you have more power than you think. Now let's talk about what happens if you don't act. Because I need you to understand the stakes here. If you miss the January 19th opening for AUSSIE 491 pathways, you could be waiting months for the next opportunity. If you don't boost your 189 points, you could be stuck in the pool while others with higher scores get invited round after round. If you choose the wrong education provider, you could lose thousands of dollars and years of your life. If you accept a dodgy sponsorship, you could end up exploited, underpaid, or even deported. The risks are real, the consequences are serious, and ignoring these updates is not an option. But here's the good news. You're watching this. You're informed. You're ahead of most people. And that gives you an advantage. Because in a system this competitive, information is power. Speed is power. Preparation is power. And right now, you have all three. So use them. Don't waste this opportunity. Don't let fear or confusion hold you back. Take action. Make a plan. Get your documents ready. Reach out to professionals if you need help. But whatever you do, don't sit still. Because Australia's immigration system is moving forward and you need to move with it. This is AUSSIE VISA and IMMIGRATION bringing you the most important updates, the clearest breakdowns, and the strategies you need to succeed because we're not just here to inform you, we're here to empower you. We're here to make sure you don't just dream about Australia. We're here to make sure you get here, and stay here, and build the life you deserve here. So bookmark this, share it with anyone who needs to hear it, and come back because we're going to keep covering every update, every change, every opportunity as it happens. Your future in Australia starts now. Don't let it slip away.